The Wall Street Journal editorial board, and Democratic Congressman Chaka Fattah of Pennsylvania is a member of the Appropriations Committee. So we're doing a little dating here. This is sort of a lunch date, lunch only kind of thing we're setting up here between you two. Congressman Fattah, a man with 100% ADA voting record for like 10 years now, and I'm very proud of it. Can you see cutting a deal with some people on the right to try to bring fiscal sanity to our defense budget?
I think there will be deals cut. I think when you see Dick Durbin and Coburn and others join together on the Debt Commission, voting for a package of cuts and some tax reform ideas, I think there can be and there will be as we go forward. You know, politics is a business where, you know, people have interests and you try to pursue them. If they're going to be cuts, and they're going to be cuts, then they should be across the board, and they should focus in on where there are unneeded revenues that we can grab. And, you know, when Secretary Gates says we can cut $100 billion out of the defense budget, I think we should take him up on it. You know, the hardest part of cutting defense is the really nice hardware. You know, I mean, people like to make it. They like to make submarines up in Connecticut. They like to make engines for GE up in Massachusetts, Raytheon.
That's right.
Everybody likes to build some special thing that's absolutely essential to the military. It's hardware.
That's right.
And it's also the bases, of course.
And, you know, a lot of the money is in the weapon systems.
We shouldn't cut the pay for our soldiers. It's not in the young people in the service. It's in this hardware, like you said, Chris. And any exotic weapon system that anyone can think of, people want to invest in. Okay, let's get back to that. Look, you're an expert in this, I guess, because you work for the Wall Street Journal editorial page. You must be an expert. You guys are not amateurs. You may be wrong all the time. So you're like Yogi Berra. We're making good time.
Let's start with the first principle of the budget. Right. You know, on defense, you spend what you have to spend. I mean, when John F. Kennedy was president, he spent 10% of our GDP on national defense. Now we spend about 6%. So you know, we're not wholly excessive. Now, I think the congressman.
Well, we got a lot more older people now, depending on Social Security. There's reasons why there's.
No, I'm talking about as a percentage of our economy. 10% of our economy is spent on national defense. 6% is practically an historic low. But look, the congressman is right. There is a lot of waste in the defense area. And the challenge I would make to the congressman is this. Look, I think you can get Republicans to agree to some of these cuts in the defense budget, but you've got to go along with some of these cuts in the domestic budget.
Well, let's take a look. Congressman Fattah, hold for a second, suspend for a second. Here's a list of Republicans. We're going to show them to you. And this is a big development. Anybody progressive out there will be stunned by this. Here are Republicans who've called for cuts in defense spending, actually in the campaign trail this last summer. Let's listen.
Well, first of all, there's not a government program that shouldn't be under scrutiny, and that begins with the Department of Defense and goes all the way through.
I back spending restraint across the board. At the DOD, like no second engine for the F-35 fighter, closing down Joint Forces Command, across the board reduction.
In order to address the deficit, the only compromise that I think that we can have is that you have to look at the whole budget. We've always excluded the military and said we're not going to cut any military, or the Democrats exclude the social and domestic welfare spending. Everything has to be on the table. We have to do this intelligently.
Congressman Fattah, you're on appropriations. Are you hearing from any Republicans that are talking like the candidates there, talking cuts in defense?
Well, when the Tea Party actually finds out what really is going on here, they're going to be very upset. You know, what you have is a pledge to cut $100 billion out of the next appropriations bill. Well, we never did last year's bill, so they get a chance to actually cut money that they never thought they would be able to cut. But what the Republicans are saying is, well, wait a minute, we still can't cut $100 billion out of the budgets for what now really are 2 years back to back. And they say, well, we might only be able to cut, you know, $60 billion or $40 billion. They're going to have to look at where the money's really at if they want to cut spending. It's in defense. Wait. It's in the mandatories.
But hold on here. I mean, I looked at the budget numbers in preparation for this, and if you look at what's happened to the domestic budget when you include the stimulus spending, that's up, many agencies, 60, 70, 80% in the last 2 years. The defense budget over that last 2 years is up about 12%. So the point I would make to you, Congressman, is a lot of the beef in the budget, the big increases in spending, have been in the domestic area. That's why I think one of the reasons Republicans are aiming their budget blade at those programs. And you never answered my question. If you can get a deal with Republicans to cut some of these defense programs, what about Democrats? Will they come to the table and cut some of the waste in the domestic budget?
Well, I voted for a balanced budget under Clinton, and we cut a lot of domestic programs. It was a hard, tough vote, but we balanced the budget. What I'm saying to you, Steve, is that the Republicans are not giving you the whole scoop here. They have the budget from last year, which we never finished. Remember, the omnibus was pushed aside? They could be able to cut money out of a budget that should have already have left the station. So they should be more money for them to cut on the table, except they're telling you they can't find these cuts. So all I'm saying to you is...
No, Paul Ryan's going to come out with his budget,
Okay, yes or no? Let me bottom line. Let me hardball this. Steve, is there going to be any budget cuts in defense like everyone else?
I think there will be.
Chaka Fattah, Congressman, will there be any cuts in defense like there will be in other areas? I assume we're in a budget-cutting season. Will there be?
No, at the end of the day, they're going to find every excuse in the world to fluff up the defense budget, and they're going to cut programs to educate our children. They're going to put our future economy in jeopardy. And the Wall Street Journal will be the first ones to say that we need to make sure that we're producing the workforce that we need for innovation and leadership in this world.
That's by cutting
and
taxes.
we shouldn't be cutting education.
You can't get the...
Congressman, are you going to sit with any Republican tomorrow night to show you're a buddy-buddy on the other side of the aisle? Are you going to do any of that stuff tomorrow night, that dating game?
Who are you sitting next to?
Look, any one of them that I can find that's for educating our children and for putting our country's freedom and security first rather than political rhetoric, I want to sit with.
You're not guilty of political rhetoric at all. Thank you, Congressman, and that rhetoric-free comment. Thank you, sir, so much. Congratulations on getting reelected again, by the way. Stephen Moore, thank you, sir, for the Journal. Chaka Fattah, my friend from Philadelphia. When we